Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us. This is Business Incorporated coming to you live from Lagos. I'm Chimeze Obi Iwawu. I will begin in Kenya, where the central bank has held its benchmark lending rate at 10.5% on Monday, owing to recent increases in fuel taxes that would temporarily put upward pressure on inflation. On Monday, the policymakers cut the bank's reference rate on which bankers are supposed to base their lending rates to 8.90% from 9.87%. The reference rate usually stays in place for 6 months. Kenya's energy regulator raised retail prices of petrol in the capital, Nairobi, by 8% on July 14, mainly due to an increase in the road maintenance levy. And the downgrade of South Africa's rand-denominated debt rating by Fitch to one notch above sub-investment highlighted the risk of a sovereign downgrade to junk status. And that's according to the Treasury. It says, although the action represents an alignment, it also serves as a timely reminder of the risks of a downgrade that lie ahead and the urgency of actions required to reinvigorate the economy. Meanwhile, the Finance Minister, Pravin Gordhan, says the country cannot rely on austerity measures to reduce public debt and boost economic growth as previously thought. Gordhan has been trying to find a balance between reining in spending to contain South Africa's budget deficit and avoid credit rating downgrades, while also funding ways to boost economic growth and provide basic services to the poor. Well, let's look at the markets in Europe. Traders are digesting another slew of earnings ahead of two important central bank meetings due to take place this week. Let's talk to DWTV Channel's TV financial correspondent at the Frankfurt Stock Exchange, Christoph, about some of these earnings. Good afternoon, Christoph. Well, we've seen BP report a drop in earnings and not a net loss. How are markets reacting to this? Is BP's results likely an indication of how the other oil majors will perform? I know Shell and Total are scheduled to publish earnings on Thursday, and ExxonMobil and Chevron the following day.
Well, investors are sending BP shares downhill here. BP posted a net loss of 1.4 billion US dollars. Earnings went down 45%. Well, at least that net loss was less than a year ago. But nevertheless, BP is, like many other energy companies, suffering under historically low oil prices. BP also had to come up with a pretext charge of more than $5 billion regarding the Deepwater Horizon disaster. And just recently, the company pointed out that it is estimating the total cost of dealing with Deepwater Horizon, the disaster there in the Gulf of Mexico, at 62 billion US dollars. Now, BP CEO Bob Dudley said BP was delivering significant improvements to the business that will stick at any oil price. He also stated that the company is well down the path of transforming the business to compete. Well, as I said, investors are not really buying it today. BP shares are down 2.5%.
Now, talking about oil price, we saw the prices of oil edge up earlier, and shortly before now it tilted into the negative territory. Any reason for that?
Well, investors are spooked about news that they received recently from the U.S. The U.S. Energy Administration said U.S. inventories had fallen less than expected. Petrol supply is dramatically high, is unexpectedly high, and demand is surprisingly low. Take into account that it is holiday season in the U.S., which is an important season. People are driving a lot around in their cars, so naturally one would expect demand for petrol to be high. Well, that's not the case. Add to that the fact that the number of rigs producing crude has increased again, and the general lack of global demand, and that in itself paints a picture that is not all too rosy, at least in the eyes of the investors, and we see pressure on Brent crude as well as on West Texas Intermediate.
Now, Christoph, I know that a number of central bank meetings are being expected this week. We have the Bank of England and, of course, the Federal Reserve meeting, which starts today. Now, what are investors expecting from this Fed's meeting, which is kicking off today?
Well, another rate hike at this meeting is pretty unlikely. There's just too much uncertainty about the shape of the economy in the U.S. in the second half of the year, despite the data and the backdrop having improved, as one investor told me. But the big debate among Fed watchers is the central bank able to somewhat signal that is inching towards a rate hike later in the year, possibly in December? That's what many investors are expecting. And they will keep a close eye on the statement by the Fed that is being issued by the Fed after this week's meeting. There will be no official press conference by Janet Yellen, so everybody will focus on the statement, and it's very likely that the Fed will mention a improved labor market in this statement. But again, it is quite likely that after all it's not going to be enough to have another rate hike, and we see Fed fund futures telling that there's almost no chance of a rate hike this week, but then again chances of a rate hike in December are increasing on that note.
Well, Christoph, we'll just have to keep an eye on that Fed meeting and see what the outcome would eventually be. Thank you very much for your time. Christoph Kober, DWTV Channels Television financial correspondent, reporting there from Frankfurt Stock Exchange. We'll move on now to Asia. Shares in Japanese games company Nintendo increased slightly after record losses on Monday, when it had warned that the Pokemon Go success would have a limited impact on profits. Elsewhere in Asia, Hong Kong's Hang Seng Index rose 0.6%, led by financial and consumer stocks on the mainland. The Shanghai Composite gained 1.14%. Shares in South Korea gained ground, with the country's benchmark Kospi Index ending 0.8% higher. In Australia, the ASX 200 share index closed flat at 5,537.50. And U.S. internet firm Yahoo has been acquired by American telecoms giant Verizon Communications for nearly $5 billion in cash. Yahoo will be combined with AOL, another faded internet star which Verizon bought last year. The deal does not include Yahoo's valuable stake in Chinese firm Alibaba. The price tag for the deal is well below the $44 billion Microsoft offered for Yahoo in 2008, or the $125 billion it was worth during the dot-com boom. A solar-powered aircraft has successfully completed the first fuel-free flight around the world, returning to Abu Dhabi after an epic 16-month voyage and demonstrating the potential of renewable energy. Now, the plane, Solar Impulse 2, touched down in the United Arab Emirates capital at 0005 GMT on Tuesday. It first took off from Abu Dhabi on March 9th, 2015, beginning a landmark journey of about 40,000 kilometers around the globe and nearly 500 hours of flying.
I've waited for this moment without rain since 15 years. And there is just one thing I would like to tell you, for you to remember. More than an achievement in the history of aviation, Solar Impulse has made an achievement in the history of energy. We have traveled 40,000 kilometers without fuel. Now it's your turn to take it further.